What's up? Welcome on back. It's that time of the week again. It's Wednesday. It's bright and early. It's 6 a.m. That means it's time for some Dropkicks and Joysticks. Or maybe it's not Wednesday at 6 a.m. You're probably listening to this on a Friday at 3:32 in the afternoon, but it dropped Wednesday at 6 a.m. That's right. It's the brand new episode of Dropkicks and Joysticks with me, your host, Bloody Bill Vox. Welcome back once again, my friends. We are here to discuss the classic video games of pro wrestling's genre, as we do each and every week. We've done it 22 times already, and we are back again for episode 23 this week. We are going to talk about Fire Pro Wrestling World. This one's interesting in that the other games that I tend to talk about are WWE, WCW. We haven't talked to ECW yet, but when we get there, I have knowledge of all of these promotions. I don't have a ton of knowledge of New Japan Pro Wrestling. So the story of how I got into this game and how it ignited fandom of New Japan Pro Wrestling loosely one time a year is a fun story, in my opinion, anyway. But anyway, let's get into it. Let's not waste any time. As you can see it on your screen, it's already rocking and rolling. Fire Pro Wrestling World. This is the PlayStation 4 version. But the game was released on Steam December 18th, 2017. There was a note that it was released in July as an early access beta version or something of that sort. But the official release on Steam was December 18th, 2017. And I forgot to write it down, but I believe the date for the PlayStation 4 release was August 28th of the following year, 2018. Published and developed by Spike Chunsoft. Not familiar with anything those guys have done outside of Fire Pro Wrestling World. And, you know, it's funny, when I was doing my notes, I was like, we should look up other games that they've done. So I'm going to do that right now as we are in the middle of doing things. All right, so these guys make a lot of anime games. Seems to be going on their website. They make a lot of anime stuff. Fitness Circuit, Master Detective Archives, Danganronpa, Ultimate Summer Camp. Yeah, things I've never heard of. They don't even have Fire Pro Wrestling World listed on their main page anyway. Yeah, they don't even have it listed on their website as I scrolled here. You can't see this in either version, but I'm scrolling right now. But basically, Spike Chunsoft, I've never heard of him, and probably will never hear of him again, because Fire Pro Wrestling seems to be, or Fire Pro Wrestling World seems to be the only games that, or the only game that they produce that I would actually know of. So courtesy of our friends at SmackDown Hotel, we've got the game notes and the game features. So let's rock into those. So you can know right away what we have to deal with for our various modes. So key features for the game, thanks to SmackDown Hotel, is we got the ability to play online with exhibition matches, tournaments, leagues, and championship bouts with players from around the world. That can be fun. I've done like one or two online matches in my entire Fire Pro Wrestling World career, if you will. I'm not a big online player, so I can't speak to the longevity or the fun, or even if there's still people playing it online today. I know that there are people online playing it back in 2018 on the PS4 when it launched. Maybe there's still people playing it online today, but I'm not sure. Next in our key features, mix up the rules. Game modes include death matches, steel cage, barbed wire, or landmine style, MMA, gruesome fighting, and more. Unlimited customization. Create your dream wrestler from over 1,000 devastating moves and even more body parts to battle for custom championship belts. One note that is got to be pointed out with the customization is Even going back to the PlayStation 2 game, which we'll talk about in a little bit, the ability to create on Fire Pro Wrestling, the various games, but in this case, Fire Pro Wrestling World specifically, is unreal. Even before the game launched, when it was on Steam, I had a friend of mine who was in the content creation world at a point in time, Big Ricker Gaming, one of my best buddies. He had it on his PC first, and he was showing us all the different stuff that people were creating on the PC side. You know, classic WWF, WCW, ECW characters, NWA, AWA, WCCW, you name it. People were creating it out there. And then that same customization came to the PlayStation 4 side when it launched on consoles the year after. Another key feature listed from SmackDown Hotel is the realistic simulation. Give your creations personalities with a robust CPU logic system that defines their every action. Does your wrestler play to the crowd or play dirty? You provide actors for the ringside drama. And then content packs was another feature. Get involved during early access as we release new features, wrestler edit access, and gameplay modes. So there must have been some early access going on. I wasn't playing on the PC side when it launched. I've never been a big PC gamer. The furthest I've gone into PC gaming in the last 20 years is the WWF Legends Challenge 64 mod. Prior to that, when we first got a computer, back in the summer of 1999, we had this book that was full of discs. I think our computer must have come with it, or we must have bought it somewhere. I'm not sure what the deal was, but we had a bunch of PC games, and I even had some sports games. Like, I remember I had a Madden for the PC. I think it was like Madden 99 or something like that. Or maybe it was Madden 2000. I had a NASCAR game, had old school Oregon Trail. So I played on that PC back then, but I've never been a big PC gamer. And I can understand why people are. You can build crazy machines to your heart's desire if you've got the fundage. But personally, I've always been a console guy. I think I'll always be a console guy. But much love to the PC side. Those folks do a lot of crazy stuff. But yeah, so like I was saying, I wasn't playing this game on the PC side when it first launched because I've never been a big PC player. And then when the PS4 edition dropped, I didn't pick it up right away. I remember I waited initially because I only have it digitally now. But I once had a physical copy, and I will have a physical copy again someday because I need it for my wrestling collection. But I think I waited on the physical copy until at least early 2019. I'd have to go into my Amazon shipping history to see where that was. But I know I used points from a rewards card to pick it up because when it launched in that August, my original experience with Fire Pro Wrestling on the PlayStation 2 was not a positive one. So I wasn't super jazzed to get this game. So here we go. Let's talk about the original PS2 game and how we kind of get to where we're going. And then we'll go back into talking about the game too. You know, we sidebar a lot around here. But anyway, so back on the PlayStation 2, I had seen Fire Pro Wrestling. I think it was Fire Pro Wrestling Returns was the official title. I saw it as a game that was available. A lot of people talked it up quite a bit. They were like, oh, it's an awesome game. You know, you should give it a shot. I think I got a copy for like $20, something pretty agreeable from a GameStop. So, you know, I brought it home, I played it, and I didn't understand the hype. It was very tough to learn. It was very tough to even get anything going, and it just wasn't enjoyable for me. So I very quickly put it down and didn't really ever play it again. Fast forward to 2016, 2017, I'm in a wrestling tag team known as the Era of Violence with my tag team partner, the ultra violent assassin Rob Marsh. He got not huge in the deathmatch world for a little while, but he did some fun stuff with people like Matt Tremont and Low Life Louie and Schlack, just to name a few of the bigger names he got to work with. And there's probably some others that I'm missing in there that he's worked with. I think he even did a 4-way that involved Nick Gage. But anyway, we're in a tag team, and when Fire Pro Wrestling World gets announced and gets released, he is all about it. And it's at this point in time that I learned that my tag team partner is a Fire Pro Wrestling Returns connoisseur. In fact, at that point in time, he is waiting for a PlayStation 2 memory card that he bought off of eBay or something to show up that is preloaded with hundreds. And I mean hundreds, because one time I was at his house and we sat down. We had a few libations on the bus, as Cody Rhodes would say. And we went through the entire memory card as we just sat there with our gazes staring off into space as he went through every single category of wrestler there was. But I learned that he was a connoisseur of this game and he loved it passionately, deeply, played it all the time. Still to this day, we're in 2016, 17. He keeps a PlayStation 2 solely to play this game. Like, he has the newer consoles, but he keeps a PlayStation 2 solely for Fire Pro Wrestling Returns on the PlayStation 2. A little sippy sip of the water there. As I've listened to podcasts more and more, I realize that I got to stop being self-conscious about taking sips of water and stuff while I'm recording. I hear far worse from people that are ranking in way bigger contracts and sponsorships and advertising, and I'm not doing any of that. And these guys are like, eating their microphones while they eat a sandwich and suck back a coffee. And it's A-okay. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and just guzzle on the water or crinkle the bottle and all that jazz. But, anyway. But, like I said, he has the current consoles, but he keeps the PlayStation 2 solely to play Fire Pro Wrestling World Returns. We looked at all of the wrestlers and all that jazz. So one time we were in Maine, and this is where he started to turn me and sell me on the idea of maybe playing this game at some point in time. Our friend Big Ricker had the Steam version on his computer, and Marsh sat down and proceeded to play the game for at least an hour, if not more. And just sat there watching him, enthralled with what he was doing, because he knew what he was doing. He understood the grapple system. He understood the timing. He understood the mechanics. All things, even to this day, I still have a challenge with getting the hang of. In fact, in preparation for this episode and before recording any of the gameplay, I actually decided to go into the tutorial. Partially because I was like, oh, let's chase some trophies while we're here. I went into the tutorial thinking that you got a trophy with 5 tutorials cleared. It's 50, or they call it missions. But I thought it was 5. So I was like, oh, nice, cheap, easy trophy. Nope. And even then, if it was just 5, it's still not cheap, easy trophy, because I do not understand the timing of Fire Pro Wrestling. Still to this day, I'm not great at it. Although I will say, the regular matches, like you go into exhibition and play, a lot easier than the tutorial. So I think the timing is a little stricter in the tutorial than it is in the gameplay. And I never really saw where I could adjust the gameplay settings, easy, medium, hard, that kind of stuff. But anyway, getting back to Marsh, he's sitting there playing it, and he understands everything about this game, and he's just playing it and playing it and playing it. And I'm like, wow, this dude is having so much fun. And he really, really, truly talks up everything about this game. So in a way, he's kind of being a salesman for Fire Pro Wrestling World. He's talking it up so much that even though my past experiences are negative, he's getting inside my head enough that I'm saying to myself, self, you might want to give this one a shot. And the big difference between the PlayStation 2 version and this one here is the PlayStation 2 version did not have any recognizable names in it. It was just a bunch of like made up characters. Fire Pro Wrestling World was going to feature New Japan Pro Wrestling. Now, I always kind of felt like Fire Pro was loosely affiliated in that direction anyway, but New Japan did have their own games. But it always kind of felt like there was a loose affiliation. At least that's how I understood it. And maybe I was just ahead of the curve and wrong for many years until. But that was the other thing that was going to be different about this game, is there was going to be names that you might recognize. But then the caveat for me, I'm not a big New Japan guy. I've never been a big New Japan guy. Like, I appreciate what New Japan Pro Wrestling does. And I like a number of talents that have come through there. But to say that I follow them with total fandom and all that stuff, no. In fact, I haven't watched any New Japan since April of this year, which was when I decided to end my New Japan subscription. We'll talk about how that happens every year in just a few. But so I'm not a huge New Japan guy, but going back to a previous episode where I talked about Power Move Pro Wrestling and how that was originally going to be a New Japan Pro Wrestling game, and I wondered out loud in that episode, I said, I wonder how a New Japan Pro Wrestling game would have done. Well, now we were going to get an idea of how New Japan Pro Wrestling was going to be received in the video game market domestically. Because by 2017, and even a couple of years prior to that, New Japan Pro Wrestling was becoming not like a cult following, but it was internet popular. You know, they didn't have a United States foothold, and they still don't, even here in 2023. But they were internet popular. And it was that internet popularity combined with the video game, combined with social media, that kind of grabbed me in the way of like, I always wondered how New Japan would do domestically in the video game market, and now I think we're going to get a chance to find out exactly what would happen. So we got the New Japan presence, we got my buddy putting it over like crazy, and like I said, I waited when the game first came out due to funds and waiting for a sale, and just I didn't want to drop day one pricing on a deluxe edition without being sure of it, especially where my only other experience with the Fire Pro series was negative. And it's on me. I couldn't learn it. I'm not trying to say it was a bad game. I just didn't enjoy it because I couldn't learn it. Simple as that. So coming into Fire Pro Wrestling World, I was, what's the word we're looking for? Cautious, right? So I'm trying to go low investment, so we wait. But the New Japan presence and my buddy Marsh were basically the selling points. And I figured, all right, it's on the PlayStation 4. They're going to evolve it. It's going to be better than the PlayStation 2 edition. Graphically, it's better. It plays great and all that fun stuff, but it's still got a steep learning curve. Super, super steep learning curve. But Marsh was the biggest salesperson of this. He was the biggest salesperson of this. Without Rob Marsh, my tag team partner in the era of violence, I don't think this episode would be taking place today. I don't think I would ever be sitting here talking about Fire Pro Wrestling World without my tag team partner. And I can say that about a lot of stuff we did in wrestling, but specifically it's dawning on me, like right now, that the only reason that I ever bought this game was because my tag team partner actually made it seem interesting. My previous experience was garbage. It was a brand I'm familiar with, but it wasn't a brand I was familiar with. Same reason I passed up on the TNA Impact game back when that came out. Like, I knew TNA, but I didn't really know TNA. But it's just it's amazing to me. Like, this was not a thought that I had. So if I'm seeming thrown off here, I'm like, wow, it's another thing that my partner is responsible for that wouldn't have happened without him. I never would have played this game without him. Being straight up honest, just because, like, yeah, I knew some of the guys on this roster, but coming into, that's a very important thing to note. Coming into the release of this game on the Steam side, that's important to note. Coming into the release of this game on the Steam side, I'm going to look through the roster list real fast before I put this count out there. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow. 4. 4. All right, so coming into this game, when it was announced as coming to Steam and eventually the PlayStation 4, I got a note here that this game, counting all the DLC, the game features 110 playable characters. And now a lot of these were announced after the game's release, but there was a basically like a day one roster to be added in. But like overall, out of 110 characters, I knew of 4 coming into this game. So the roster didn't exactly sell it. Now, when it finally came out on the PlayStation 4, I was much more familiar with the roster. And that's because in the interim between this game coming out on Steam and it coming out on the PlayStation 4, New Japan started to become very much talked about. Chris Jericho started running an angle over in New Japan, and that was part of my draw in. I was like, oh, Chris Jericho is doing something away from the WWE, and he was doing a program with this guy named Kenny Omega. I had never heard of Kenny Omega a day in my life prior to whenever Jericho started the angle. I loosely heard the name with the Young Bucks, and like I knew of the Young Bucks, but I didn't know about Kenny Omega or any of these other dudes because they were all over in Japan. Like some of them did some indies and stuff, but for the most part they were in Japan, so I'm not seeing this stuff. Like going back through the list, coming into this, the 4 guys that I knew of were Hiroshi Tenzan, Jushin Thunder Liger. Where's my other one that I knew? Tiger Mask. There was one other name that I knew. And that was it for my Japan knowledge of people in this game. All right, well, I counted 4, but apparently I lost one somewhere. That's hilarious. All right, well, we'll only name 3. But Jericho doing the angle over in New Japan is what initially kind of got me looking at them a little more, I guess seriously would be the right word. And not to say that there weren't guys that had worked in Japan before that weren't reason to take it serious. Like, you know, WCW used to do a bunch of stuff with New Japan back in the day. But nobody had ever seemingly left the WWE to go over to Japan into a high-profile angle over there. So that's what kind of grabbed my attention. So in between the Steam release and the PlayStation 4 release, I got a little more familiar with the New Japan roster, thanks to watching Wrestle Kingdom 12, which we'll talk about towards the end. But Wrestle Kingdom 12 was in early 2018, 8 months before it came out on the PlayStation 4. So now we can add in, we've got some live New Japan experience to know a few more of these characters. Looking at some of the folks that are on the Wrestle Kingdom 12 card back in 2018, there were a lot of folks from that roster that are in this game. But still, as I've kind of repeated a few times, I walked in trepidatious and cautious because even though I started to know more of the wrestlers, I was like, yeah, but it's still the Fire Pro game. But let's get into the features of the Fire Pro game, since we deviated quite a bit there after content packs. But, we're going to tell some stories around here, right? We got to tell them stories. But let's get into the game modes, then we'll talk about the roster that I don't know, that I didn't know and still don't know a lot of. And we'll butcher a bunch of names there. Talk a little bit more about the game, and then, we'll start wrapping it up. Just to give you a progress report of where I'm at in my format, if you wanted to know. But anyway, the game modes, we've got Exhibition, and the modes within the Exhibition are normal, Steel Cage, Barbed Wire, Landmine, SWA rules, Gruesome Fighting, and S1 rules. So Gruesome Fighting was basically like UFC in a way, or was that S1 rules? I confused them, but we got some real hand-to-hand MMA combat modes here in the SWA rules, Gruesome Fighting, S1 rules stuff. Our Barbed Wire, Landmine matches are explosive and violent. They do a fun job with the blood in this game. It's not like, crazy realistic, but it's fun. Like it almost looks like a powder in a way. But anyway, it's cool. We got tournament mode, which lets you set up single elimination tournaments. We can do the round robin leagues or the G1 Climax, essentially, or the Continental Classic, as AEW is doing now. We've got Battle Royal, mission mode, which is essentially the tutorial. But it's a fun mode if you want to learn the game, and they recommend you play it if you're not familiar with the game, which is where I'm spending my time because it's been a while since I played it. But I'm enjoying it presently. But anyway, you complete objectives in specific matches. You start off with some training stuff, and then you go out and do matches where you got to, like I say, do certain things in the matches, and you clear it. There's trophies available in the game for 50 and 100 completed. So there's a lot of them, a lot of missions. We've got our edit mode, which we kind of talked about earlier on. A little more of an expanded description of that. We've got customizing wrestlers, moves, rings, logos, referees, championships, and even changing the names of the moves. We can add as many wrestlers as our storage device allows. So no limits, unlike the WWE games. Entrance Craft allows you to customize your entrance sequence. The Parts Craft gives players tools to export wrestler part data to edit and share. Finally, the Move Craft allows you to create new moves that aren't seen in the game or bring back moves from past games that didn't make the cut. As we've talked about in the past, I'm not a huge creative guy. I'm not very creative when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like, I can build off of somebody else's something, but typically speaking, I'm not the most creative guy. So I've not done any diving into the entrance craft or the parts craft or the move craft. I remember one of them was actually a DLC you had to pay extra for. And I was like, well, no, I'm good. I'd say if there is one thing that does aggravate me about this game, and I talk about this in my final review a little bit, but these guys are no different than WWE has been this year, and even AEW has been this year, with selling you deluxe editions and then doing DLC later that costs even more money on top of the base. This game was no different. there was the base, like, deluxe edition, and then they've done, I'm not knocking this one, but they did a charity DLC, which this one I thought was great. There was somebody, what's the name? Let me find it. Yoshihiro Takayama. I can't remember what the health issue was, but the whole idea of the DLC was to raise funds for that person. You see, I'm not knocking that one, so I wanted to immediately put that one out on top and say this is not a part of it, because that one is at least was a noble cause, right? We're raising money to help with somebody's medical situation. That A-okay with me. But there is still DLC from this game that I have not purchased because it wasn't a part of the deluxe edition, and I wasn't going to put any more money into a game that, admittedly, I still have a hard time playing. I have more fun now with the Fire Pro Wrestling World than I did with Fire Pro Wrestling Returns on the PlayStation 2. And I think thanks to playing the mission mode now, I'm starting to even enjoy it a little bit more. Will I go into these entrance crafts, parts crafts, and move crafts? No, most likely. And that's because I just can't see myself doing it. I'm not the creative type. And if I recall, they talk about the ability to export your stuff and all that jazz. I think it's a bigger headache than it needs to be, if I recall. It wasn't a simple system. But admittedly, I never played it, so I'm not going to offer a ton of comment on it. These episodes are about what I did experience, what I do remember within these games. And when we get to something that I didn't, I'm always going to tell you what I did and I didn't. I'm not going to just comment on things within a game that I never actually experienced, because that would just be dumb. Anyway, back to our features, or our modes. We had the online mode, which allows people to play and match with up to 3 other people across the globe. And then, of course, the sharing of your creations. We have the Fighting Road mode, which is a story mode where you join New Japan Pro Wrestling as an up-and-coming wrestler, pick a stable, and work your way to the top of the promotion by winning the coveted IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, complete with appearances from several members of New Japan's roster. A second Fighting Road allows you to strive for the Junior Heavyweight Championship, which I believe features Jushin Thunder Liger. And a third titled Champion Road Beyond takes place 26 years after the infamous story of Super Fire Pro Wrestling Special. Wow. Also written by... I'm not sure what this means to anything. It says also written by Suda51, the son of the late Mario Smith. Looks to follow in his father's footsteps, but will he suffer a similar fate? Or will he carve a new path? So there must be some lore there that I don't know about, because I have heard of Super Fire Pro Wrestling Special. I've never played it. So, interesting. I knew about the second Fighting Road, but I can't recall ever seeing the third one, so we're going to have to look into that within the PlayStation Store at some point. And then our last feature of the Fire Pro Wrestling game, Fire Pro Wrestling World, excuse me, is the Fire Promoter. Now, I've never been a big GM mode guy. Like, I liked it back on the SmackDown versus Raw stuff, but when I say that I want a wrestling simulation, I mean stupid stuff like the Road to Elite mode kind of gets in that direction. Like, I want to have to go out into public with the wrestler. I want to have to drive a car. I almost want, in a way, kind of topical as I record here, the GTA 6 trailer dropped today. It was supposed to drop on December 5th, but some dickheads leaked it in advance. Anyway. Oh, geez, I lost my train of thought. Lost my train of thought there after saying dickheads leaked in advance, so we put our little tape recorder machine there, and now we're in the future. But anyway, what I was trying to get at before my brain disconnected from the rest of my body is I was saying that pretty much what I want is a wrestling GTA game, like an open world wrestling simulation. So I've never really been big into the GM simulators and anything like that. So Fire Promoter is another one that I've never really spent any time in, but I did do some research into it. And it was heavily criticized for a lack of depth and customization. Apparently, you can only pick, like, it was something low, like 6 wrestlers out of the gate. You can only offer a contract to one of them. If you pick a stipulation match for a show, it makes every match on that show that stipulation. So, like, if you wanted to do a cage match, every match becomes a cage match. Couldn't use your custom rings. You couldn't edit the wrestlers. Basically, they were charging $20 for this. They were charging $20 for the Fire Pro promoter mode, and people just were not happy with it. Just real fast, while we were talking about the Fire promoter, I wanted to check into this Champion Road Beyond store. It turns out I own it. I don't remember buying it, but turns out I own it. The DLC that I do not own, I was talking about that. I never bought the Entrance Craft. That is $19.99 on the PlayStation Store currently. I've also never purchased the World Wonder Ring Stardom collaboration. Each of those DLC packs are $20 a pop. We'll talk about who comes with those in just a little bit. I do have the Move Craft and the Parts Craft. They must have come with my Deluxe Edition purchase or the Season Pass. I'm not quite sure. But I do have quite a bit of the DLC. The Stardom stuff I don't have, and they did 2 of the charity DLCs. They did a second one. It comes with custom ring. This one is the second pack was just a custom ring logo and wrestler edit parts, and even here the PlayStation Store notes the medical issue that I was unaware of. Mr. Takayama was paralyzed from the neck down from a wrestling accident during a match on May 4th, 2017. So, not too long before this game launched. They unfortunately were paralyzed in the ring. But anyway, let's talk about the roster real fast. I'm not going to rattle off all 110 folks that are in the game because that's a lot of people to rattle off. But we've got the SWA promotion that it was in the other Fire Pro Wrestling games. A bunch of made-up characters, essentially. Some names in here. We've got like Blood Angel and Dag Boomer. Ernest Miller, of all people. I wonder if it's really the cat. Karts Rowdy. Max Bertrand, Oliver Espadas, Red Dragon, Takaya Hinomiya. See, we're already butchering names. Well, let's get into some of our New Japan names, shall we? Let's see. We've got, I always butcher his first name, but Okada, Kazuchika, I don't know, Okada. We know Okada. Kenny Omega, Naito, Tanahashi, Minoru Suzuki, I see this name a lot. I don't know who he is, but Goto, Bad Luck Fail. That guy's a douche. Evil, Sonata, Kota Ibushi, Zack Sabre Jr., Tomohiro Ishii, Juice Robinson in this game. The former CJ Parker from NXT. Let's see, who else we got in here? We got a bunch of Bullet Club guys like Tangaloa and where's the other guy? Where'd he go? Tama Tonga. There he is. Let's see who else we recognize. Yuji Nagata, old school WCW fans. If you're not even a New Japan fan, if you watch WCW, you might know who that is. Same with Hiroshi Tenzan. He appeared in WCW in the early '90s. I remember he quote unquote, broke the arm of Road Warrior Hawk. And considering how the Road Warriors were positioned at a point in time, that was pretty freaking huge. Let's see who else we got in here for names we recognize. Kushida. Was another name that we know now. Taka Michinoku, And that wraps up the names that even I recognize now. Then on our DLC roster, we've got the legendary Jushin Thunder Liger. Let's see, Tiger Mask, Will Ospreay, Rocky Romero, Dragon Lee, and Beretta, better known as Trent Beretta. We had Switchblade Jay White. Let's see, and then our Stardom packs. I am going to butcher almost every single one of those names. Good Lord. Good Lord. Let's see. She went on to be somebody else in WWE. That's the name I recognize. So let's see who. Let's see. Blair. B. Priestley was a part of the Stardom pack, and she was. She's gone on to become Blair Davenport. Hana Kimura, who had a very unfortunate end to her life, she is a part of the DLC. Admittedly, I'm not very familiar with Stardom, so a lot of these names I don't recognize. Hana Kimura is, unfortunately, I learned her name through the way her life ended. I'd never heard of her prior, and that was a sad way to learn about her, was via her passing. And then, of course, we got B. Priestley, who became Blair Davenport in NXT. I swear I recognize that name. No, I don't recognize. I thought I did. AZM. I thought I recognized her as somebody else, but I don't. My bad. All right, that was a little bit splintered there going through the roster. I think I do better when I just list everybody off, but 110 people overall. So if you're a New Japan enthusiast, granted, I think some of these names have left. Some of them are scumbags now, but in general, you should be pretty satisfied with this roster if you're big into New Japan Pro Wrestling. Now, for me, we talked about this a little bit earlier and kind of leaned into it and didn't really talk about it, but it'll be our last story before we start wrapping things up here. But I say the roster is huge if you're big into New Japan Pro Wrestling. I get into New Japan Pro Wrestling about once a year. They have an uncanny ability to pull me in for Wrestle Kingdom each and every year. Now, Wrestle Kingdom 12 was the first one that I became familiar with Kenny Omega. Now, this past year, 2023, his match with Will Ospreay is what pulled me in, and I had a bout of insomnia that particular day, and I was up at 1:30 in the morning Eastern to watch that event. But it's because of this game and Chris Jericho's involvement in kind of bringing a little more attention. Like I said, somebody leaving the WWE for Japan just struck me different, and so it got my attention. But with this game and in that match originally, it is spawned where since 2018, so 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and we'll repeat this in 24, I ordered New Japan Pro Wrestling World in January, right before Wrestle Kingdom, and I end up keeping my subscription for 3 to 4 months, and I watch some stuff, and I try to keep up with the programming, and then I fall off, and then it's about 8 months before I do it again. But New Japan Pro Wrestling can thank this game and their involvement in it, and they could also thank Chris Jericho for at least 4 months out of the year, 3 to 4 months out of the year. They get my dollars, and it's a very agreeable service. If I wasn't trying to just cut back on streaming altogether, streaming costs, I'd probably be subscribed just because it's 999 yen, and that actually translated to like $8.83 US or something. So it's not even $9 in the States. But I get to the point where I don't watch it. I got Peacock, I got YouTube, got the other streaming services that I already pay for that I use on a regular basis, and it unfortunately gets filtered on its way out the door. But every year I'm tuned in for Wrestle Kingdom. I watch the preview shows. I try to get caught up. They do a really good job with their video packages there. Like if you've never watched a New Japan event, maybe, spend the $9 and buy a month, or plan ahead and plan to watch Wrestle Kingdom this year, because I think we're getting Okada versus Danielson, right? They do a really good job with their video packages, and they've got the English commentary, so you can understand everything that's going on. But personally, I like the Japanese commentary, even though I don't speak Japanese, so I don't understand anything they're saying, but I enjoy it because there's a different enthusiasm. So yeah, I'll watch Wrestle Kingdom live in English, but I'll go back and I'll watch it in Japanese also, just because there is a different enthusiasm that comes with it. But yeah, they do a really great job with the video packages. And so even though I don't watch for 8-9 months out of the year, they do a great job of letting me know how we got to these matches that we're at. So I only know of the one so far. I think there's a triple threat with like Jon Moxley and David Finlay and, was it Will Ospreay maybe? I don't know. People weren't happy that David Finlay guy was involved. I don't know why. The couple times I've seen him, he looks all right, but every time other people talk about him, they seem to be upset about David Finlay being involved. So moving along here and wrapping up our discussion this week here on the show, let's take a look at what was going on in New Japan Pro Wrestling at the time of this game's release. And, well, there just so happened to be an event in New Japan on the day this game came out on Steam. And, I didn't even think to check to see if there was an event the day that it came out on the PlayStation 4. But we cover the initial release. So, 8 months difference, that'd be kind of weird, I think. But anyway, we had a 9-match card, Road to Tokyo, December 18th, 2017. It was at Koryukin Hall. I always butcher it. I'm sorry. It's a legendary venue, but I butcher it always. We had a 9-match card. Our first 3 matches on the card were I'm going to butcher another name here. Kotetsu Yamamoto. That's my best attempt there. Memorial 11th Young Lion Cup Tournament. I'm going to guess it's the 11th annual. Umino defeated Narita. Oka defeated Yagi. And Kitamura defeated Kawato. I figure we'll minimize my name butchering here. Then on our non-tournament matches, we had check out this lineup here. I don't know the first name, but I know the last 3. Masked Horse, Kushida, Tiger Mask, and Jushin Thunder Liger defeated Taka Michinoku, El Desperado, Taichi, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. Oh, boy. I think I butchered that. Anyway, Tomohiro Ishii and Toru Yano defeated Aaron Hanar and Togi Makabe. Probably butchered that one. Sanada and Evil defeated Yujiro Takahashi and Bad Luck Fail or Folly. I believe that was like Chaos against the Bullet Club or something like that. There are a lot of factions over there. People say AEW is faction heavy. Go watch a New Japan show, my friends. They're pretty heavy. Maybe Tony Khan's a New Japan buff. Kota Ibushi, Satoshi Kojima, and Hiroshi Tenzan defeated Hikuleo, Tangalo, and Tamatongo. Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi defeated Takashi Iizuka and Minoru Suzuki. And then in our main event of the card, it was Sho, Yo, and Okada defeating Takahashi, Bushi, and Naito. Crazy. I thought it was very interesting that there was a card on the same day. Now, granted, when the New Japan card launched, The game probably wasn't even officially out on Steam yet because it was like 1:30 in the morning when that event was happening. But all the same, still pretty cool that there was an event directly on the day this game was released. I just thought it was interesting because, the other one's like, 2 days before the release, 6 days after. Not right on the day, baby. So let's get into the final review, and then we will wrap things up here on this episode of Dropkicks and Joysticks, because apparently my voice is wanting to kick out on me. I don't know what the hell's been going on with me lately. Starting to wonder if the old lungs are starting to fail or something. I've had issues with those over the years. Maybe we're starting to have new ones. Who knows? But anyway, final review time. I only highlight it in case somebody's out there like, oh, his voice is real hoarse at times. He should... people like to complain about that. I don't know. I'm in a mood today. I haven't felt good the last couple days either. Anyway, final review time. Let's get back on track here. Fire Pro Wrestling World is one of those games that can appeal to anyone as long as they understand that the learning curve can be steep and victories may not come easily with this game. I had speculated once upon a time that a New Japan Pro Wrestling game would do well in the United States. Do well in the United States. And while this game didn't break any major records or anything like that, I think it definitely helped create some New Japan Pro Wrestling fans new and bring some old ones alike. Myself being in that old bunch. Fire Pro Wrestling has been out for a few years now, but you can still buy it and download the DLC packs as well. We talked about those a few minutes ago. I've seen the game on sale many times and often deeply discounted for the deluxe edition of the game, and the DLC packs tend to be on sale for 50% off when they are. The game did do base add-ons with the standard game, that deluxe edition I was talking about, and added DLC later. Here's a fun note. But nobody cared because New Japan Pro Wrestling isn't a major U.S. promotion, but people, myself included. Geez, you think I wrote this and I could figure out, we put a comma there. Let's do our spacing. Let's try that again. Take two, but we're not editing it out. No one cared because New Japan Pro Wrestling isn't a major U.S. promotion, but people, myself included, butchered that again, man. Take three. I don't care. You're sitting through it. Let's do it. No one cared because New Japan Pro Wrestling isn't a major U.S. promotion, but people, myself included, lose our minds when WWE and AEW did it in 2023. Yeah, we got it. Take three, baby. We're leaving in all the blunders, though. Overall, I would absolutely recommend this game to anyone who likes wrestling and wants a challenge. I'd give this game a 7 out of 10 for its challenge and longevity, thanks to multiple modes, a deep roster, and the ability to play online. Now, I'm not a major online player, so you might be confused. Why would you include that? A lot of people are. And that extends the life of a game for a lot of people. And any game that has online most games have online, but any wrestling game that has online that is successful with its users is a success in my book. So for me, the deep roster and the various modes is enough to keep me happy. But the online play is something that can't be discounted because even if you get sick of playing the base game, you can just go online. Assuming there's people still playing in 2023. I still see people. What is wrong with my brain? It's crazy. Anyway, I still see people streaming it and posting it on YouTube. So the game is far from inactive. I didn't cover this earlier, but since I gave my score, IGN gave this a 7 out of 10. GameSpot gave it a surprising 8.7 out of 10. And because Steam is where it launched first, I decided to include user ratings on this particular episode, and the users on Steam rate this one very favorably with a 9 out of 10. Now, my 7 out of 10, why the less 3? It's namely for that steep learning curve. I like to buy a game for a challenge, but I also like to buy a game to unwind. And this game, I think, takes a little more learning then I'm willing to generally put in. The fact that it's wrestling helps. But generally speaking, I don't like to put in as much time as this game requires one to put in to learn it. And that's on me. It's not a commentary on the game. I feel like it's important to say that, like, my original PlayStation 2 experience was negative because I couldn't learn the damn thing. This one has been more positive because of the New Japan Pro Wrestling influence, to be frankly honest. If it was still a game full of nobodies, I don't think we'd be having this discussion. If it wasn't for Rob Marsh putting over the original and putting this one over by playing it at our friend's house in Maine, we wouldn't be sitting here having this discussion. But yeah, Fire Pro Wrestling World, as you've seen on the screen, it's a fun. It's not a WWE 2K. It's not even an AEW Fight Forever in terms of the graphics. But anyway, but it's a fun game, and it's one I would definitely recommend. Catch it on a sale though. Don't. There are some places that still sell it full priced. I don't recommend that. When it first came out, maybe you could have done that, but now wait for sales. It's always 50% off when it goes on a deep discount, and sometimes I hear it goes even deeper on Steam if you're a PC player. But on that note, my friends, we are going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of Dropkicks and Joysticks. It has been a fun time talking about Fire Pro Wrestling World and New Japan Pro Wrestling, and next week, we're going to talk about a promotion that I have a little bit more knowledge on, but a game that I have never played. That's right. As of this recording, I have never played a full match of next week's episode. Next week, we're going to talk about WCW Backstage Assault. And if I've never played it, you might be asking, well, what are you going to talk about? Well, we're going to talk about the game itself. Obviously, I'm going to play it for the first time in preparation. But we're going to talk about how WCW Backstage Assault encapsulated the dumpster fire that was WCW 2000. Because on what planet do we say, hey, we're a major wrestling property. Let's put out a video game that removes the thing that makes us wrestling. Because that's what our wrestling fans want, is a backstage fighting game. Made about as much sense as WCW programming in 2000. But until then, my friends, if you want to follow me on social media, you can do so at Bloody Bill Vox, as I always say. If you want to know if I'm on a platform, just search at Bloody Bill Vox. If I'm there, I'm there. If I'm not, chances are I'm not gonna be. But until next week, have fun out there, be safe out there, be happy out there. That's really all we can do. And then come on back for another new episode of Dropkicks and Joysticks right here with me, your host, Bloody Bill Vox. I'll see you next time, my friends. Fun salesman outro now complete. Show's over. Bye-bye.